Hey guys, what's up? This is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. It is Wednesday, January 11th, 2023, and today I'll be joined by my guest, and his name is Chris Enegren. He's the owner and head brewer of Enegren Brewing Company and is also the current mayor of Moorpark, California. He grew up in Moorpark and studied mechanical engineering at Loyola Marymount University. Chris met his wife at Moorpark High School and is a proud father of 3 boys. Enegren Brewing Company was born in Loyola Marymount University dorm room when Chris started homebrewing. Founded in 2010, Enegren Brewing Company is an independently owned craft brewery located in Moorpark, California in Ventura County. The company, founded with a passion for good beer by Chris and Matt Enegren and Joe Nascenzi, focuses on German-inspired beers with a heavy emphasis on lager-style beers. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks, Jason. Good to see you again.
Yeah. It's better that we're on the podcast and not moving stuff into my house, right?
Yeah.
So much easier.
It wasn't too bad. That was easier than it could have been, but yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate you jumping in because I just asked you this literally a few days ago. For those of you that have been following the podcast, I originally had Fred Clare with the management of the Dodger organization scheduled for today, but unfortunately he had some health concerns and is in the hospital. So we're sending him well wishes and a speedy recovery, and hope to get him back on the podcast on the schedule very soon. But Chris, thanks for stepping up and when we were talking, when we were moving, all the kids were kind of standing around. They said, how'd you start Enegren Brewing Company? And they were mesmerized. They actually talked about it that whole night, and the next day after they were asking questions like, dude, this guy, it's so cool. What an awesome story. So I think it's amazing to be able to talk to local business owners, entrepreneurs, people that had a dream and a passion and just made it happen. So I would love to give you the floor to talk about how you started Enegren Brewing Company, and then we'll kind of go back and talk a little bit about family and Moorpark as well.
Sure, yeah. So first of all, before we get started, if people start walking in the background and trying to ask me stuff, that's going to happen. There's a lot going on today over here, so I'm trying to hide in a place where no one can find me, but it never really happens like that.
Good luck with that.
But thanks. So the brewery started back in it really started as an idea around 2003. So I was at Loyola Marymount. I was a freshman going into sophomore year. I liked beer, like a lot of college kids. And I was an engineer. So I was always really interested in building things. Since I was a kid, it was always tree forts, cannons, and weird stuff like that. And getting into college, it was just pretty much more stuff just like that. So I was always finding myself in the engineering lab trying to tinker with things and looking at just systems. It always really fascinated me. And it was one night where I went to it was a BJ's restaurant when they used to brew beer there. And it was the one down by UCLA. And I was sitting there, we're having beers, and I was just looking at the whole system, and I was just fascinated by it, just the amount of chemistry that went involved in it, all the pumps, the piping, tanks, the whole process engineering side of it to go from a bunch of grain and hops and water and yeast all the way to just what I still consider the most glorious beverage in the world. And at that point, I just started going on the internet, looking at, home brewing. How do I start this off? I know that people brew in buckets, and they do the little home brew thing, the Mr. Beer type of a thing. And I figured that, maybe it'd be a good idea to use my powers for good and try to make beer for us, because that would be obviously nice. So I went ahead. I put some money down, bought some equipment. And conveniently enough, it was almost like it was meant to be. When I looked at, homebrew shops where they were in the area, there was one almost down the street from my school. So I walked in there and I literally just said, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what to do, but I want to make beer and I want to go on this rabbit hole. And the guy was like, all right, come follow me. So loaded me up all this stuff. I asked him about 1,000 times how to do it. And then on the way back, went back in. Wait. So I do what first? And we just started brewing. And the one thing that I noticed with brewing, and I think a lot of people when they home brew, a lot of home brewers, the same idea, is that if you're making cookies at home, you make a good batch, you're typically not thinking like, all right, cool, pretty much in a few years I'll be owning a bakery. But there's something about beer when you make beer and you taste it the first time and you realize that you made actual beer. It's like, well, I don't know if it's not now, but at some point I want to own a brewery. Like, that's everyone's dream. It's like the American dream, like own a brewery. That's, well, at least for me and all my homebrew friends when I was starting there. So that first batch of beer, I remember it was fermenting in my friend's closet down in Loyola Marymount, and he came running to me one day and saying that, it's bubbling, it's bubbling. Like, what does it smell like? It's like beer. So after about a week of fermenting, we opened this can up, and it was this like Home Depot plastic bucket. Looked disgusting, and we all did the not it. Who's going to taste it first? And it worked. It wasn't great. It was very thin. We didn't carbonate it, so it was just that's what it was. But mind you, in college, you're drinking, if you're lucky, Natty Light from a keg in a backyard. And it might be old. So what I was making was top of the line, even though it was just garbage to the my standards now. So I ran that during college, and we had a little bar in the backyard, and I brewed there. We put beer on tap at the house. And we had a bunch of people over, and we all drank the beer, and I just kept making more, and I got better at it. And it's hard to drink 5 gallons yourself like quickly, so we just kind of went through it, just try to get better and better at it. And I did that for like a couple years at college, and then my third partner, Joe. At this point, it was my brother and I kind of doing everything. And I played lacrosse with Joe, and we were kind of acquaintances. We're both into craft beer. So whenever we went to like a party, it was like everyone else was playing beer pong, and it was me and him like, oh, where'd you get? Oh, Sierra Nevada. Where'd you get that? I want one of those. And he just told me, hey, I know you're moving out of your house and you're getting an apartment. If you need a place to put your brewery, you can use my detached garage, and I'd love to like brew with you. And every friend wants to brew until they realize you have to work, and it's not just drinking beer the whole day. But he was the one that really wanted to get into it. So ever since then, he was basically involved in the brewery, and we built it up from there. So that was all college. After college, I moved back home to Moorpark, living with my parents. Just have to save some money I want to buy a house someday. So I was saving money. I was working at Medtronic in the Valley, and doing automation engineering, working for this German electrical engineer. He was also into beer as well, as you could probably imagine. And I wanted to learn how automation worked. I was mechanical. I was building all the fixtures and the linkages of things that he was automating. We were kind of working together in this team here. So he started teaching me electronics. And then I started taking scrap electronics from the garbage and bringing them home and automating stuff. Like my, brew system was sitting in the corner. And it was kind of like might as well learn how to run this like logic controller, and I'll make it turn a burner on, see what happens. And that started turning into, now the brewery isn't like that thing you wheel out, have to fix, have to put back together, takes hours to brew on. Now it's turning into this thing where I flip a switch and it starts to automatically fill and drain and run burners. And it was kind of like a dual thing. I was trying to learn how to automate stuff, but also I was into brewing, and then that really started getting crazy. So if I'm like dragging on, let me know, because I'll just talk for like literally 30 hours on this.
It's fine. We're just telling your story, and since you gave me a little break here, just to jump in, first I want to thank Gabby Abdelgadir, who is watching. She's commented several times. I put it up there. She was just kind of joking that wine is the most loved beverage, and that men in our community drink beer. But I think that everybody has their own taste, right? And men and women both drink beer, of course. But she says on a serious note, her best friend in Germany who had kidney issues, the doctor had her drink beer, 6 beers a day, and she was healed. So that's kind of an amazing story that beer actually healed somebody.
Wow.
We also have someone on Facebook, Mayor Enegren. Hello, Mayor Enegren and Master Flame. Good to see you. I'm curious who that is. Whenever you guys watch these videos, do me a favor, click on that little link at the bottom, because it allows permission to post your name. Sometimes if you're in a certain group, it will just say Facebook user. And I know I've got a couple regular viewers. It might be Daniel Groff. It might be somebody else, but let us know that you're watching. And by the way, if you have any questions for Chris, he does love to talk and he does love to tell this story. And what I love about it is how passionate he is about it, right? It doesn't matter what you do in life, be it teaching martial arts, be it Daniel Groff is here, insurance, selling beer. Like if you're passionate and you have a dream, you can make so many things happen. And so that's, that's what I love about this story. And I love when you get to tell this story to other people, because whatever it might be that you want to do, this is a motivation podcast, right? Just get after it. Just get started. Just do something to move yourself forward. So I'll let you finish up that story. I think it's really unique too, that the whole automation system. Is that unique to Enegren Brewing, or I know that you have helped other brewing companies automate their systems as well, but is that normal for brewing companies to have it all automated?
Well, right now it pretty much is. And when I say automated, I don't mean like you push a button and it spits beer out like a coffee machine. It's like there's still human in the loop. Yeah, it's not like that. You're still there. You got to check stuff. You still have to dig everything out. It's very, very manual as it is. But there are things like temperature controls, mixing controls, things that like when you say you're a good brewer, you're not saying you're a good brewer because you're really good at turning the burner off when it gets to a certain level, or you're really good at making the mash all mixed uniformly. That's not what makes you a good brewer. It's all the technique that runs around that. So that's kind of where the automation was. But when I first started, automation was not something you saw in breweries. It was very rare. Now there's a lot of manufacturers out there offering brew systems. And now if you want to start a brewery and you want to go with a tiny one like I started off with, there's going to be a package that is full-blown touch screens, automated valves, and temperature controls like that. So that's kind of a normal thing nowadays. But when I first started, it really wasn't a lot like that. And it was really like kind of blowing up. The whole industry was exploding. And the thing that actually got me into going like pro was when I was in the garage doing all the automation and brewing in there, we got to the point where it was just getting weird as a hobby. It was like I was telling friends like, oh no, I can't go to your party today. We got work. We got to brew, and it's like, and we had like I made uniforms for us all for Christmas one year as a joke, and I was like, nah, this is badass. We're gonna run this. So we were like getting pretty hardcore with it, but it was a home thing. So at that point, it's like you got to pick like, all right, grow up, make it a job, or maybe step back a little bit. But at that point, I realized like my dad wanted to move out of the house. They wanted to sell the thing. I couldn't go build a automated brewery in an apartment, that I could only afford at that point. So that's the time I remember my dad telling me like, you got to get out of the house and you and your brother need to go take this brewery somewhere. And maybe it's time to think about the next step on that. And that's when we kind of thought about like, let's go make a man cave and see if we can pay the rent with selling beer 10 gallons at a time. That turned into like a whole Excel sheet, and we needed a bigger one. We needed more money. We had the money, so we had good jobs at the time. But I went and I looked at this company in San Diego, Premier Stainless, and they're huge now. It's incredible how big they got. But it was a small like two guys in a little garage building breweries. And I remember I talked to the owner. I said, listen, I want to build this brewery. I can get into, a 100-gallon size system, which was like 10 times the size of my homebrew thing. And I want to go up to this step because this is like big enough to pay the bills in an industrial park, big enough to get, some beer out there at some bars, but not to the point where I had to quit my full-time job. And at that point, I was like, my career was automation engineering. I was a manager at Medtronic. I was working my way up the chain, and I was looking at like corporate life. That was my thing. I was going to be in corporate pharmaceuticals. I was making great money, so I was thinking about all these cool things I could buy, and my life was going to be like the nice car, playing golf on the weekends, and living in a nice house. And I look back at that, it makes me sick to even think about that's what made me happy. And I was heading that direction. So I want to build this like middle step thing. So I bought this brewery just basic. I just said, give me the tanks, the piping, and I'm going to start putting stuff in the thing. And he said like, yeah, I'm actually really curious as to what you're going to do with that, because that's really cool. And might as well, like, while you're doing automation, could you help me with keg washer programming? And I said, yeah, how about I'll write you a new program for your keg washer and I'll trade you for a grain mill. So I had this really, really nice professional grain mill in my garage,
Hmm.
milling grain. It took me like 5 seconds to mill. But I had this whole thing. Is your beer as good as Heineken? Oh, it's not skunked in a green bottle, so it's better. So yes. Um,
Oh, wow. Just call
um,
it out.
but if you like Heineken, you got to check out our Edel Pills. It's a very similar style, nice and dry and hoppy. But so I started doing that. So I was getting into this like automation kind of a deal. And once I got this little 3-barrel tiny brewery going, that's when I was on that ledge. I had to pick. It was getting really big. It was going well. We are getting a good name out there, having a great time doing it. And I was working all day in the morning. I go to work, drive to the valley, dress up in the whole business casual. Then I'd come home, take that off, throw a jumpsuit on, and I'd brew and do kegs and all that. And I went from like this like corporate lifestyle to in a garage, and it was just like, wow, if I just keep pouring like passion on top of this thing, like this is gonna be awesome. If I keep pouring passion into my main job, I might get laid off. I might have to go move somewhere else. I'm working for
Hmm.
some guy who works for a guy who works for a board of directors, and who the heck knows? And it's pharmaceuticals. It wasn't my dream really. It was engineering. It was beer and beer engineering. So I started like getting this like, oh, I'm kind of getting a little bit of a pull in this direction. And I got to say, it was the owner premier, Rob, that I think kind of saved me. And he called me up and he said, "Look, your little brewery. It seems like you're building up. You're doing well. You're making a lot of beer, and if you want to go to the bigger steps, you're going to have to just go for it. So you're going to kind of pick, like, you want to keep moving or do you want to stay where you are?" And he said, like, I will offer you a position here part-time. You work part-time during the week at home, come down to San Diego every other week, work down there. And in the time that you're not down there in San Diego, you brew and keep moving that brewery forward and start building your next brewery out. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I can pass up that deal. And like, he was like, I'll offer you a really good deal. Really good pay. Now it's not going to be pharmaceutical, management pay, but like, hell, I can survive on that easily. This is going to be good. So I told my wife, and I was like, look, this is where we're at. And like, I kind of want to do that. We didn't have kids. We had this little brewery, and she was a PA. So she had a job that could bring in the money, and I could, afford to screw up big time and go back to my, real job if I had to. So it was a good time to make that decision. And I remember she like told me, and it'll always stick with me. And she was like, "Don't be a pussy, do it." And I was like,
I love it. Your wife actually told you that? She said that.
she said that 100%. And I'm like,
That's a good
there,
wife right there.
I was like, there's no way I'm not going to take that advice. Like, that's a good story if it works out someday. And if it doesn't, I can't not do that. Like, I'm being called out to chase my dream here. So, and like even before that, and like right before that happened, when I was like contemplating this and thinking about it, and I don't know if I want to do that, because this is like, mind you, I went to school. I went to school for engineering. I was doing this career, and it was like really, really good. I was doing very well, and I was moving up, and it was like a lot to throw away if it didn't work out. So it was kind
Hmm.
of a tough decision at the time. But what really kind of convinced me was, and I told you the story when we we're moving. Um, we had a retirement party for one of the guys in our group, and this guy's like got a smile on his face. We're going on the table, and we're like, "Oh man, wow, what are you gonna do now? You're out. What are you gonna do?" "Oh, I'm gonna like enjoy my life. I'm gonna travel. I'm gonna do this. I have like these hobbies I'm gonna do." And everyone's like congratulating him, and I was like, "Wow, are we in prison right now? Is my buddy getting out of jail? Like, what am I doing?" And I started like getting this like kind of epiphany, like our whole system, like it trains you to work your butt off until you're like 70 years old and then retire to enjoy your life.
Hmm.
I'm gonna work something I like to do until I
Right.
die doing it when I'm like 90. I'm gonna be that old guy at the brewery still washing kegs someday. Like I want to be that guy because that guy's having a good time. So, that's where I just, it kind of like fell into place. And I was like, there's no way I can not do this. I have to try it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went full on that. So with the premier job in San Diego, it was really, really cool because I had a small brewery. I was doing automation work, but I was building these giant systems for these other places. And I was flying to went to New Zealand, went to Northern California a couple times, did a couple in San Diego. But I'm going to these big, big breweries that are way further than I was at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with their owners and brewmasters up there and about like their whole layout, their building, and I'm doing all their automation work and installing the system. But while I'm doing that, I'm showing them my plans for my little brewery I'm trying to build out. And these guys
Mm-hmm.
are telling me like, no, that's cool, but like you're gonna run into some problems having that place there. And that was
Right.
like great advice that I could never get. So
Chris,
yeah,
can
yeah.
we answer this question for
Mhm.
Gabby? And we only have about 15 minutes because we both have a board meeting today, so we're gonna finish up in about 15 minutes. Um, but can you answer, Gabby? What is an average cost to start a small brewery?
It really depends on how small you're talking. Like a small brewery could be let's just say, let's just use my first one. When I built that little brewery out, the little
Mm-hmm.
3 barrel system, which popped out 100 gallons at a time, I put down about 90,000 to put that whole thing together. And I split that up between myself, my brother, Joe. Our parents hopped in and gave us some money there too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it started. And that was enough to make enough beer to feed the rent, keep the thing going. We didn't take any paychecks at all. We didn't even take tips at the time, which was silly. So that just gets you like a full breathing company that's a good jumping point to like a real thing. So that's the cost of a small brewery, but a lot of time you got to add that in there too. If you're going to pay someone to do anything, you're already like kind of under on that. So we had to do all the brewing, literally every single asset or aspect of that company there. So that was just that, and that was like then. So now it's probably a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But
And thanks, Roseanne, for watching as well. Roseanne was just on the show just last week, so go check out that interview. But she said, when you do what you love, it doesn't feel like work. And you and I had this conversation.
mhm.
Like we love what we do. We'll do it until our body won't let us do it anymore, and then probably sit in a chair and still do it. Right? Like you could sit in a chair and basically tell everybody what to do. I could sit in a chair and teach if I had to. I don't like to, but I
Yeah,
could. I mean, we both found our passion and pretty early in life too, right? Like some people search their whole life to find their passion, and some people never find it, and they just work that job. They just grind it out
yeah,
until they can retire, and that's for entrepreneurs like us, that just doesn't really fit in our personality at all. And what I want to talk about a little bit more, and I love the story of the brewery, and we talked quite a bit about it, but you've gone from a small local business and built it up to a very big business that now you're shipping beer all over California, and I can't wait to see you branch out across the country and even beyond, right? But you've taken a really big role here in Moorpark, in my, I call it my hometown now. I grew up in Newbury Park, but this is really my hometown. This has always been your hometown, right? And you went to high school here. You've done some work on city council, and just recently you were elected as mayor of Moorpark. Um, don't think that was ever really your plan to become mayor of Moorpark, right? But it just kind of happened. Can you talk about that story a little bit?
yeah. I never ever in my wildest nightmares thought I'd be involved in politics. I just
Right.
like engineering. That doesn't seem. It almost seems like it's like there's too much logic in engineering, and then there's politics, and it's all politics. So it wasn't until I started kind of going through the whole system, building out the brewery, seeing like how permitting worked in the city, and just seeing like the old. There's a lot of old mindsets back at the time we started off. Like Moorpark is a city where you drive into your house, close the door behind you, you stay inside watching TV, and you drive back off to work the next morning. And that was kind of like the idea of you know suburbia like that. And when myself and a lot of my friends were moving back to Moorpark because we lived in LA and realized that that's not the place you want to raise a family. So we're picking like, well, where do we go? Moorpark's got like good housing prices compared to the area, really nice community, great place for kids. But then we're looking at it like, well, what can we do at night? There's nothing to do. I'm not going to Thousand Oaks for everything. So we
Mm-hmm.
started like asking ourselves the question, like, I think like mom and dad would want to go local. I would want to go out to a restaurant like in town. Like since M1 High started, I don't go anywhere else because I don't need to. It's right there. It's perfect. So I think like that was like the new like future look of no, we don't need to have like nightlife and a whole strip of bars and DUIs and drunk people everywhere to have something to do at night. We just need to have like the things that match up with this community. So I think a lot of the things in town that do really well is that if you can combine things that parents can do at night or can take their kids out to, then it really works well here. And the brewery is
Mm-hmm.
one of those things. It's not a bar. Kids can be here. It's very family friendly. So
Well,
um,
you've turned your area. Enegren Brewing Company is located in the alley, and I mean it actually has a name. It's the alley, and you've got all these other businesses. You got Fire and Vice, you got California Coffee Republic, you got Lucas Cellar Wines. You have stuff there that people, even if you don't drink beer, you can still go to the alley
mhm.
and have a night out, and it's become a destination spot for people, not just on the weekends, but throughout the week. And you brought up M on High Street, a lot of great things coming up on High Street as well. So many new things, and I can't help but call it out again. You talked about the old school mindset. And I think that's everywhere. It's not just Moorpark. It's everywhere. It's the mentality of this is the way we've always done it. And I think that there's been several people like yourself, like Daniel Groff, like other leaders in our community that step up and said, no, we're not going to continue to do it the way we've always done it. There
Mhm.
is room for growth. There is room for change. And what I really think is important that people need to understand is that, Moorpark is still a small town, right? Small town, but big on business, right? Uh, Small town, but we can still have change and growth and maintain that small town feel, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we got
absolutely.
holiday on High Street, right, which has become the premier event, here in Moorpark for the holidays, right? You got your Oktoberfest at the alley. We've got Haunted High Street. We've got all these great events that are bringing people together. Moorpark Country Days, so much more that still makes it feel like that hallmark community. Still has that tight knit. I mean, listen, last night we were at the Chamber for the brand new grand reopening, all new look, and look at how many business owners were there. Look at how many leaders were there, and we're all friends working together to make Moorpark the best place to live. And it is. I mean, it's just such a. Why are we all here? Because it's a great place. And now
Right.
you, as mayor, have the ability to make even greater change, within the city council and talking up to our supervisors and just really being an advocate for the change and growth here in Moorpark. I'm super excited about it. Lots of different stuff coming up. Can you talk a little bit about some of your plans as you became mayor? What were some of the things that were really important to you to make a change or to maybe just update and tweak a little bit?
Yeah, I want to push economic development, especially a lot of the things I learned in this brewery area, building out in a spot that you would typically not think that a brewery would be in. Just the way that the zoning is changing. Like it used to be like people would say location, location, location. And that was because you had to drive by people's businesses. But now it doesn't make any sense anymore. You can type in any address and your GPS takes you there, whether it's on Main Street or in the back area of town where I am. And
Hmm.
it's all about like internet presence and having something that's like fun to go to. So I've been looking at like how we zone things up, trying to push businesses to the center areas, like industrial or not industrial parks, but on like shopping centers and main streets. And if someone gave me like free rent in a shopping center, like for the brewery I'm making, it wouldn't work out as well as it would down here with the amount of like events and parties we do. So not all businesses will work well in every single type of area in the city. So being able to update our zoning codes to make that make sense and make things a little
Hmm.
bit more flexible is something that like I saw a lot of issues when I was going through the whole process. So that was one of the huge things I wanted to look at.
Hmm.
And just trying to get like, the high street deal, getting that thing going. Ever since I moved to the city in 2000 from Massachusetts, from a town that was 8,000 people. I remember thinking like all these places around here seem like they're just like soulless, expensive places. But Moorpark, this high street is weird. It's like, it's nice. It's something about it that just needs to be like dusted off and kind of given
Hmm.
some life. And that was the time when there was a lot of like gang trouble going on down there, and it wasn't like what it is now, which is just really cool. So um, seeing that and seeing that like our business development right now is people are putting money into the city not because they see like the dollars coming in because it's a very dense area with a lot of things going on. The
Hmm.
people are putting money into the city because they believe in it and they believe in what it can be. So like
Hmm.
I know Broadsley can make a hell of a lot more money going somewhere else to do all the things he's doing, but he grew up here, and like Groff buying that building there, like these are things that are helping this whole city move forward.
Hmm.
And it's just cool knowing there's a lot of like passion that's going into redeveloping everything from within.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you talked about, economic development being, one of your key things. I mean, got to give a shout out to John Bandek, who has done an amazing job since he, stepped in like right away. I mean, first of all, he's on our board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce. He's in there promoting the businesses with his brand new Discover Moorpark campaign. Just an amazing job, and with your leadership, I think that's only going to get strengthened. I read an article, and maybe you did too. The Moorpark Acorn just posted something, and I was disappointed in the response to this article because it talked about all the things coming to High Street and the excitement for High Street, and then you got all the Debbie Downers, right? You got all the people talking smack, right? Oh, I've been here for decades and never seen anything done. It hasn't changed. I'll believe it when I see it. Blah 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 blah. Right? And that mentality is what keeps dragging us down, right? It's in quite honestly, it's people that are not educated on really what's going on, people talking kind of out of the side of their mouth, um, and they just really want to put it down instead of
Mm-hmm.
building up. Like you said, Daniel Groff invested in his building, Jeff Broadsley's investing in High Street. Things don't happen overnight. I get it. I mean, I've been here since '93, and there's been a little movement, but I mean, just recently we've had the whole Metrolink parking lot redone. Looks amazing, right? We got the Princeton Avenue being taken care of, after all these years. That's going to be amazing, and that's going to help. If you drive down High Street, as we talked about, I just moved up in the Highlands, and every time I drive home, I literally come from the studio down Moorpark Avenue, right on High Street, and head home. And I swear, every time I drive down High Street and see the lights, just the lights all the way down the street make it amazing. The tree's still up, which it should be down soon.
The rain didn't help that really.
Right? Um, but yeah, there is some movement. So my question is, how do you respond to the people that are, the Debbie Downers, the people that the non-believers, the people that want to say nothing's happening, I've seen it. You know, what can we tell those people? What do you have to say to those people?
Well, whenever I hear someone talk like that, I say like, I don't blame you for thinking that, and that is a very, very logical thing to think. So no hard feelings there. But we've got a lot of things that are moving forward that are working better. A lot of new people. I mean, go from like not everyone goes into City Hall and sees everyone working there,
Mm-hmm.
but going from the culture that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago to what we have now, very, very different. The
Mm-hmm.
amount of investment going into the city from people like in the chamber right now, that's another organization that's like really getting very important and improving a lot. So there's a lot of things I see that are changing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if we had the same mindset that we had for the 30 years the city was built for, then yeah, I understand that it wouldn't be changing. There wouldn't be anything happening. High Street would just be a dump forever. And we'd be building McMansions all up in the hills, and that's all we would have, and that's it, nothing else. But things are moving a lot. So as the things start clicking in, those people will start realizing that our city is turning into something nice. I think we're always going to fight. Like, people want the small town feel, and I always do too. The growth part, that's happening all the time. So we're just trying to make sure that we're going to grow responsibly and make sure the state isn't going to, you know, is that they're really kind of pushing us to do a lot of things we don't necessarily want to do, but trying to make sure we grow responsibly and just make sure that like we have that small town feel. Like, we can
Hmm.
get a little bit bigger, that's no problem. But just like the brewery from day one, it was, when people ask me, how big do you want this brewery to get? And I will say, I want to get as big as it can get, with me knowing that I can put my name behind what I'm doing. We're staying in the same form, fit, and function. And I'm not selling out to make like sparkly chocolate, whatever nightmare beer it is. And that's that. So if that means I stay the size I am right now, then great. If that means we explode and become this giant brewery, but we're making beers that I'm proud of making,
Hmm.
then that's awesome. So the same with Moorpark. If Moorpark wants to expand a little bit and get a little bit bigger, but maintain that small town feel where you still know everyone in town and you still have like, then
Uh-oh.
that's wonderful. So
Lost you for just a second, but I'm
oh,
glad you came
sorry,
back.
got a
That's
phone
okay.
call.
Hey, well, listen, guys, we got to wrap up because we do have a board meeting in about 15 minutes. So, if anybody has any questions, last chance to throw any questions, and of course, you can feel free to comment now or later if you're watching this on a replay. But Chris, is there anything as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, advice that you can give people that are watching, and maybe not business related, just when it has to do with when it comes to setting goals and achieving goals? Do you have any advice?
I think just kind of follow your heart. Do what you believe in. If you just hate your job and you're doing it every single day, that's just not really a good life. Think about that. And I did make a lot of sacrifices to do what I want to do, but hey, it's worth it. I can't wait for Monday. It's my favorite day of the week, and everyone else I know thinks that's the worst day of the week, and I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
problem. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things, and it's just, it doesn't come easy. Like, it's really fun. It's a fun job. I love what I'm doing, but oh my gosh, like the amount of just headache and all night working, and you have to really pour it in. But when you're doing something you love, and you know how this works, Jason, with the karate studio, this is not like a 9 to 5 job at an office. Like, you're at a karate
No,
studio fighting people and teaching martial arts. That's pretty freaking awesome. So, but like,
it is
you
amazing.
have to work way harder to do that. But when you work super hard, it's not necessarily work. It's just doing what you are. Like, that's your job. I'm doing what I'm doing every single day, and I absolutely love it.
Well, thanks for sharing that advice. And I'm going to share this last comment. I believe I'm covering up our faces, but I believe this might be Daniel Groff that posted this. Things are happening on High Street. Local stakeholders are putting their money where their heart is. First, it was Lucky Fools, now expanding. M on High Street, the remodeling of our building and moving insurance brokers west into it. We have a new restaurant with a local owner coming in. Jeff buying and remodeling several properties, and now Doug Ridley purchasing the other two-story building on High Street and planning a remodel. Yeah, lots of great stuff happening, guys. Listen, if you're a Moorpark resident, I urge you and encourage you to share this video so that you can get to know your mayor a little bit more. I know that he's always available for questions, always available. Stop by and have a beer with him over at Enegren Brewing Company. And let's just keep making Moorpark great as we know it is. And I appreciate you, Chris, and appreciate your time just sharing your story today. So thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I will see you in just a little bit. And guys, make sure to tune in. Now we are live every Monday and Wednesday with the Master Motivation Podcast. I have several excellent guests coming up. Stay tuned and follow us and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitch. We're all over the place. So check it out, guys. I'm gonna finish the video. And Chris, thanks again, sir.
All right, thank you. I'll see you
All right.
later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.